Welcome everyone to the Gavel. I am Terry Ikumi. It's less than 2 weeks to the resumption of plenary in the House of Representatives and less than 3 for the Senate, who had to sit an extra week to screen and confirm the ministerial nominees of the president. Now, as we look towards the resumption of plenary, various House of Representatives committees have continued to sit in order to conclude their investigations before plenary resumes. One of such committees is the Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating crude oil theft in the country. Take a listen to how proceedings went.
This House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee is investigating crude oil theft in the country, as mandated by the House before embarking on its annual recess.
Crude oil theft has drastically hampered the growth of Nigeria's oil production. It is reported that Nigeria loses between 5% to 30% of its crude oil production on a daily basis. Data available through the yearly reports of Nigeria Executive Industries Transparency Initiative (NIETI) show that Nigeria's oil production declined from 2.51 million barrels per day in 2005 to 1.77 million barrels per day in 2020. NIETI reports also show that 619 million barrels of crude valued at over $46 billion were stolen in the period of 2009 to 2020. The committee was set up in line with the National Assembly determination to continue to reform the oil and gas sector and ensure the optimization of the sector's potentials for the benefit of Nigeria and Nigerians. The Ad Hoc Committee is expected, therefore, to investigate crude oil theft and other related channels of revenue losses with a view to identifying measures that can be taken to curb the huge revenue and economic losses to the country. It is therefore expected that the committee will identify the players at all levels who are responsible for these criminal acts and ensure that they are brought to book.
This act of sabotage and the breach on our national security and sovereignty is carried out on daily basis, make a caricature of our pride as a nation and even a mockery of our security and intelligence agencies. It is an affront on government and its institutions, which must be tackled without further delay. It is in the light of this that the House constituted this committee and is determined to bring this ugly trend to an end. Otherwise, there may be no future for our remaining children who have not yet jumped to other countries in search of survival.
The Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, in his submission, reports on the findings of his agency on the financial loss recorded by Nigeria due to crude oil theft.
2009 to 2020. The data we collected, empirical data, showed that 609.17 million barrels, valued at $46.16 billion. When you convert in naira, 16.25 trillion was stolen. We'll be releasing our 2021 report on the 18th of this month here in Abuja. And we have just commissioned 2022 and 2023 together. So what has been stolen over these 3 years are not added. We are as of 2020. And when you check what has been stolen, this is clearly far more than Nigeria's oil foreign reserve as we speak.
Mr. Waredi Eniswo, the Executive Secretary, OPS and Tech Tantita Security Services, informs the committee about the findings of his company, alleging that Ghana is the biggest beneficiary of stolen crude from Nigeria. Another security professional makes mind-boggling revelations against the NNPC Limited, which unsettles the lawmakers.
I have developed a technology that can be able to detect third-party intrusion and real-time pipeline monitoring and surveillance. Since 2010, I was awarded a contract to secure a segment of crude oil export line, 15 kilometers. I brought the equipment since 2017. I was denied access to the pipeline until after about 4 weeks ago. I was allowed access to the pipeline. Immediately I deployed my system Even yesterday night, there are tappings in some court. Can you go back? Aha. So there is a place called Shalome. Shalome East, Shalome West. There is Focalos receiving money from. That is a compound. There is a tap from the crude oil line into a compound where they siphon crude oil onto smaller batch and sent through to the sea. This is a result of what I have employed as of yesterday night.
I am beginning to wonder if what is happening in this country is not organized crime. Because if somebody is going to be protecting my own property, and I have access to knowing when that property is being stolen, and I decide to keep mute, then it means that some of those people who you have mentioned are also liable. And I think this committee will not take it lightly.
Okay.
Because what we are trying to do is, we are trying to stop the bleeding that is going on in this country. It will shock you if you go to parts of the Niger Delta to see the level of degradation.
Now, on the 24th of July this year, the 10th House of Representatives released its 6-point legislative agenda. Now, a legislative agenda is a document which highlights the priority focus of an arm of government, of Parliament to be specific, in this case, the House of Representatives. Now, the 10th House is to drive progress, prosperity and inclusivity across the country. But some Nigerians have criticized this agenda, saying it's just too vague and sounds like a party manifesto. Our Senate correspondent Linda Higbe had a chat with an associate professor, Department of Political Science, University of Abuja, Dr. N16trn, who shares his thoughts on the House of Representatives legislative agenda.
There is this erroneous conception about legislative agenda. Some persons feel that when the legislature comes up with what it calls a legislative agenda, that those issues not captured within the stated agenda are somewhat neglected. But far from it, what the legislative agenda tries to do is only to give focus and direction to a particular legislature for the duration of the time within which it will operate. And that doesn't mean that those issues that fall outside the legislative agenda or those issues that have not been captured within the stated agenda of the particular legislature we are talking about will not be addressed. That is not correct, as some persons would want to erroneously think. Now, the 10th House has come up with what it calls its areas of priority legislative agenda. Before the House consulted Nigerians, we were told that there were about 12 agenda points in the codified legislative agenda of the House. But we are hearing that perhaps following that stakeholders and citizens engagement, that the agenda points has gone up to about 16, very likely. Now, in the agenda, the 10th House is talking about improving National Assembly processes and delivery. That is, improve the processes, improve the capacities, improve the facilities, overhaul the National Assembly, as it were, improve the capacities of members, improve the capacities of staff, the bureaucracy, improve the capacities of the legislative aides, improve the processes, improve legislative practices and procedure in order to ensure that the National Assembly lives up to its obligation of making laws, of overseeing laws, and of course, representing Nigerians. So the Assembly, the 10th House believes that you cannot meet this constitutional obligation if you do not build the capacity, if you do not improve the institution of the legislature itself. And so that is the first item on that agenda. And then the 10th House is equally talking about maintaining a good relationship with the executive, but not compromising the independence of the legislature, particularly when it comes to ensuring that the executive implement laws, policies, programs as enacted by the National Assembly. And so we will not be, hopefully, we are not hoping to see a rubber stamp house, given what the House has, stated in the agenda, that while they would love to maintain a cordial relationship because it is within the wisdom of the House, they believe that having a good working relationship will lead to improved service delivery to Nigerians. After all, we are talking about the same government, even though we have different arms of government. But then, even in that relationship, even in developing that cordial relationship, the House is equally saying that they will be very critical and very serious with issues around oversight in order to ensure that the executive is held to check for its actions. The House is equally proposing, to embark upon another round of constitutional amendment with certain key issues. One is local government reform, but this time around, the House proposes to take local government reforms from a different approach and perspective. That is, first, to look at why the previous attempts at reforming local governments and granting independence to local governments failed. And now, after looking at that, what can we do, this time around to overcome those challenges?
Looking at the legislative agenda, the House of Representatives legislative agenda is quite broad. So many aspects of it. You talked about constitutional reform, electoral reform, the processes, in streamlining the processes of the House of Representatives, capacity building and all. I want to go back to the issue of streamlining the processes, because from that agenda, it's one of the criticisms about this agenda is that it reads like an executive, like a manifesto, very broad, you understand, but not quite explaining how it will fulfill these functions. Take, for instance, you say legislative processes. Exactly what specifically is the House of Reps looking at in terms of taking a look at its processes? Okay,
first is to disagree that it reads like a manifesto. Well, it is a codification, as we said earlier, of what the House considers as priority areas. And the House was in drawing up the agenda, was mindful of the fact that this 10th House is coming at a time when we have very serious challenges within the country, particularly economic and security challenges. And it is also not true to say that some of the issues contained in the agenda do not have clear implementation strategies. For instance, if you talk about improved National Assembly processes and delivery. Now, one of the first things you find there is the capacity development of members. Why is the House concentrating on, harping on capacity development? One of the key reasons is, of course, what we all know, that a majority of the members of the 10th House are new, and therefore there is need to constantly improve their capacity in order to understand legislative practices and procedure. Now, again, also very, very important in that agenda is that even though we know that every member is expected to have a constituency office, now it is now being made mandatory that you must set up not just a constituency office, but a functional constituency office. And you must be submitting annual reports to the leadership of the House about, what goes on within your constituency office.
Are you aware, was that a needs assessment done before this legislative agenda of the House of Representatives was put together? Because sometimes what people might think, the legislature might think, people want might not necessarily be the issue. Exactly. And so was there a needs assessment done?
Fantastic. So this legislative agenda was not just prepared by members of the House of Representatives. It was prepared in collaboration with some stakeholders, some civil society organizations, and some technical partners of the National Assembly, those who provide technical support to the National Assembly. And of course, there were assessments of the burning issues of the moment. And it was as a result of this assessment that the House came up with some of those agenda points. Now, even after that assessment was done, the House again convened a citizens and stakeholders interaction to present to Nigerians what the House had come up with. Like we said earlier, there were about 12 agenda points. But after the engagement and interaction with citizens, and citizens made input into the agenda, we understand that it has increased to about 16 agenda points. And so the 10th House has been mindful of the fact that, okay, this is a house of the people and citizens have to be, constantly engaged. And again, if you go to the agenda, the House prioritizes, or the House intends to prioritize constant citizens engagement through civil society organizations, through the media. And then you also hear the Speaker constantly talk about an open NAS project. In fact, in one of the Speaker's speeches that I listened to, he made a very critical statement that if as a house, as the legislature, we ask the executive questions about the utilization of public funds, that they equally, as legislature, should be willing to take such questions from citizens about their own performance. And so I want to believe that if some of these policy statements, if some of these legislative priorities are adhered to by the 10th House, we will likely see a different House of Representatives.
And this point you made about, open NAS is a very, very important, issue, because in the 9th Assembly, we didn't see much engagement between the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, with Nigerians. We saw a bit of that in the 8th Senate. We know there was this the whole open NAS initiative where there were constant, town hall meetings and engagements, but we didn't see that in the 9th Senate. Yeah. Now, one of the things in this legislative agenda going through it for the House of Reps is constitutional amendment. And we've always, the national previous assemblies have all attempted or have actually amended the Constitution. What approach is the House of Representatives going to take in this phase of constitutional amendment, bearing in mind that there is still, this concern raised by Nigerians that the country needs a brand new constitution, that this constitution was bequeathed to us by the military, and it's not we the people that wrote the constitution. This has been a constant, viewpoint. And so what is the House, the thoughts, the thinking concerning that issue?
Okay, fine. So in the agenda, the House recognized the point you have raised, and equally recognized previous attempts by previous sessions of the Assembly to amend the Constitution. Now, the House will not particularly deviate from the piecemeal approach that has been adopted in reviewing and revising and reforming our Constitution. One of the things that the House has proposed to do in the agenda that was presented to citizens is to consolidate all the various amendments that have been made, because it has been discovered that they are in various versions of the Constitution. And so what they want to do now is to consolidate and harmonize all of the amendments so that you can have them in one document, as well as open the process of amending the Constitution to citizens to be part of it. Yes, the National Assembly had in the past, attempted this, but this time around the House feels that, okay, we should open it further for citizens, to be involved in it. How this will be done is what I don't know at the moment, but then it has been specifically mentioned in the agenda that in this amendment, they want to ensure that Nigerians can have a constitution that they can proudly say, we, the people of Nigeria, have given ourselves, this constitution. And so I want to believe that there will be a different approach. I hope there will be a different approach this time around, given what is contained in the agenda.
Now, on Constituency Focus this week, we had a chat with Honorable Dachung Bagos, representing Just South, Just East Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, to find out how he intends to engage with members of his constituency in the next 4 years, what are the needs of these people, and how he intends to meet them.
As a politician and a representative of the people, the needs of our people is not usually far-fetched from what even politicians promise people during campaigns. You see people are in need of water, people are in need of transformers, people are in, even this solar light, you see people are demanding solar lights. You see people are looking for primary healthcare centers. People are asking us of roads, to construct roads, culverts, and so on and so forth for them. Schools, so these are basic needs of our constituents that one get to so worry that the reason why many of us usually go for campaigns and what the office actually represents, that institutional understanding of what a legislator stands for, it is losing out. We are gradually metamorphosing into an executive, taking out executive roles. So interacting with my constituents have been able to make me understand their needs. And over the years, we did that, we'll be able to really interface with them, knowing very well that truly this is the end. And I always give an example with some of my aides. I say, look, if you want to take a need assessment of what our people, let's go down to really know, because there are places that maybe is a school they need, and you go and give them borehole. That will not meet their need. I have a very visible constituency office, and my aides are up and doing. We share notes, and they're always there to get feedback, and as well as I'm always here as well to get feedback through phone calls or even physical meetings. And when I go back any of the weekends, we go around, we interact with them. We have some stakeholders meetings time to time, some interactions within the community time to time, and we hear and get the feedback. Those that are so appreciative, they tell you. Those that are not satisfied with one or two things, they tell you. So it's now left for us to go back, look at the ones that people have complained so that we'll be able to adjust.
And that's it on the Gavel this week. Remember to send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.